Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to make my maiden speech on this emergency budget. I strongly believe that over the last few years, the state has taken too much. It's interesting listening to the Right Honourable Member for Normanton, Pontefract and Castleford, who declares that the nasty party is back. But I know from my own personal life that to protect the vulnerable, to give people a genuine chance of making the most in their lives, we need to empower individuals, families and communities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in talking to several of my constituents in Surrey East, the constituency that I have the honour of representing in this House, what became vividly clear to me is that these budgetary discussions should not just focus on the accountancy, the numbers and the economic jargon. It's about people, it's about their lives and it's about their futures. The hard-working young family juggling children and work, concerned about their jobs and the rising cost of living. The 22-year-old graduate with over £20,000 of debt, wondering whether she will ever get a job or a foot on the housing ladder. The couple about to retire, worrying about their pension after years of paying their taxes and saving for retirement, and left wondering about whether they will really succeed in what must be the aim for every generation, to leave a better future for their children and grandchildren. For my constituents in East Surrey, this is what the budget boils down to. Real people, real lives, real issues. Yes, in East Surrey we have a beautiful rolling countryside, most of which has been recognised as Greenbelt, meandering between vibrant towns and beautiful villages. It's the epitome of what makes England unique. We know how fortunate we are, and we take seriously our duty as custodians of the local environment and protecting it for future generations. We have great community spirit and pride in our area, which means that for most of the vast majority of people in my constituency, putting backs into the community is a way of life. It sounds idyllic. But my constituents work themselves very hard. And I also know from my postbag that some of them face difficulties just as real as in other parts of the country. A lot of them think, and I tend to agree, that the last government treated them as a cash cow and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. That is true of all those paying taxes and of the various local councils who do sterling work on a shoestring budget from central government. On a national level, East Surrey has been served with distinction by two great public servants, Pete Rainsworth for 18 years and Geoffrey Howe, who now sits on another place for 24 years. They championed the constituency in this place and always stood up for what they believed in. And I know that I have big shoes to fill in, because at 5'4.5", I know I need the shoulders of giants. But Peter's radical stance on the environment was instrumental in shifting attitudes to green issues, getting a private member's bill on green energy passed along the way, but I also respect him for sticking to his guns on the Iraq war when it seemed unpopular to do so. And from my own dealings with him, I can say without equivocation that he is a good man. I can say the same of Geoffrey Howe, whose mild manner disguised a steely sense of purpose. He was Mrs. Thatcher's longest-serving cabinet minister. 11 years. 11 years is a long time in politics. In his now famous budget, 1981 budget, when our party faced the task of getting the country back on its feet, he followed the courage of his convictions, deflating the economy at a time of recession in the face of resistance from all sides, including 364 leading economists who wrote a letter to the Times saying the budget had no basis in economic theory. But I believe we've learned a greater lesson from that budget, that we cannot simply work on the economic levers in certain circumstances. The lessons we have lie firmly in the weaknesses rather than the strengths. We've learned that we cannot be coldly dispassionate when setting economic policy. We cannot ignore the effect of jobs and people's lives. And that is why I support our program to get people back to work, because getting people to work is the best route out of poverty. As in 1981, our party once again faces the task of redefining our economy and reshaping our society. That is why I welcome the Chancellor's proposals for small business, the backbone of our economy. A long-lasting recovery must have its foundations in the private sector, and this is where jobs will come from. The jobs will come if we reward enterprise, we reward endeavour, and we reward ambition. The jobs will come if we have a step change in our approach to enterprise. We need to encourage a spirit of adventure. Without accepting this basic premise, we will not have people taking the necessary risks that are essential to creating the next Vodafone, the next Dyson, the next lastminute.com. Many on that side of the house would, however, say that having the state do less by focusing on getting people into work and building an economy based on rewarding endeavour would penalise the less well-off. They are wrong, and I should know. I grew up in very modest circumstances. Standing here is the result of the vision, care and support of a strong mother who brought us up on her own, overcame numerous odds, and instilled in us character and discipline and the value for hard work. I do not believe that any state program could have achieved what she has. On the contrary, I would have been trapped in poverty, as millions are. At university, I struggled to pay my rent, but for the generosity of my colleague Somerville, I would have been thrown out. That could have been the end of my university education, and maybe I would not have made it here. So I understand that we cannot leave people to the mercy of markets. So for me, the crux of this budget is that we should empower individuals, we should empower families, and we should empower communities to make the most of their lives. Some have said that on the face of it, I am an unlikely candidate to represent East Surrey. I have pointed out to them why it's a privilege and a pleasure, because for me to represent this great constituency is because I see there every day the values that I hold dear and that shape me. I believe these values should be at the heart of our economic policy and should guide us as we seek to reshape our society for the better. Thank you once again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for allowing me the chance to speak.
Yeah.